suggesting that they can take it easy. Philip insists that Jake was all talk, making him awkwardly laugh. Then, he tells Jake that regardless of whether it was a joke or not, he doesn't plan on taking a break yet. Philip asks him what he would like to do, and Jake suggests they contact the family because Count Melvin would be thrilled. He replies that he'll tell his family himself later and suggests they keep it a secret between them for the time being, to which they both agree. He knows that he has hunted enough monsters and leveled up sufficiently. Meanwhile, Philip angrily tells Jake to watch his words, making Jake pout and ask Philip what he means. He also realizes that he has set all the bait, and now all that remains is for the prey to take it. He tells them that they should go back now, to which they both agree. Then, they walk away while urging the dogs of the Empire to hurry up and move, in his mind. Meanwhile, in the streets of Mira, bustling with people, a lady named Nakia, an alchemist, stretches her body, saying that it marks the end of today's work. She notices that the potions are very popular these days and wonders if it's all thanks to the Ashton County who brought them there. She knows that in order to produce potions, monster byproducts are needed, and as monsters rarely appear in the Cursed Forest, she wasn't able to easily obtain them all this time. But thanks to the Ashton County's people who started bringing the monster byproducts, she has been able to produce potions every day. Not only that, but the county's people stop by the village shop every morning, asking if anything had happened throughout the night, inquiring if she needed anything, and checking on her well-being in general. She steps out of the store and thinks that Raul is a bit strange, but she is grateful to him, and Raul is good-looking too. She slaps her face in shyness, asking herself what she is thinking, and tells herself to get it together because Raul is just 15 years old and is 8 years younger than her. Also, Raul is a noble, which makes the people around her look at her strangely. A moment later, she arrives at her house, happily opens the door, and calls out to someone named Nikki, telling her that her sister is back. However, no one answers, causing her to worry. She looks around and calls Nikki again, but then notices something that fills her with fear. She sees a letter on the bed, pierced by a knife. She reads the letter, which tells her that they have taken her little sister and that if she wants to save her, she shouldn't tell anyone about it and should wait for further instructions. This makes her cry and worry while saying no. Then, she immediately ran out while crying, knowing that Nikki's life would be in danger if she went outside the city. She had heard about many reports of kidnappings, which the city government claimed to be investigating, but she never thought the rumors were true. She wondered where she should go when she couldn't go to the city government. She realized there was a chance that the kidnappers were watching her, and the guards wouldn't even bother going outside the city even if she told them. Also, if she asked the mercenaries of the Adventurer Guild, it would take a while for them to act, making her wonder what she should do. Then, she remembered Raul telling her that if she ever found herself in trouble, she should come find him. She knew it was her only option, so she ran away quickly, determined to go see Raul. Meanwhile, in an apartment, the system showed him that Nakia was heading toward him, making him think that it had come to this. He ordered everyone to get into their positions, stay on their targets, and report any changes, to which all his men replied with a swift yes. He opened his access to the Connect community and clicked the link to the cafe. He knew it was a premium member-only information cafe that he had run in his past life. Since he was a star player, he could get useful information from his fans and informants. As a result, the cafe became an information treasury that held almost every hidden piece of information in Connect. He thought he had hit the jackpot when he saw that the cafe still existed. He knew he could use it instead of relying on his uncertain memories to plan better. He searched for the link to the free city, Mira, and the system showed him that the search result was a quest starting point at South Mira NPC. He was confident that he had checked every quest he could possibly take, so now he had to hope everything went as planned. One of his men reported to him that Nakia was there, making him wonder if he could change Nakia's future. He shyly ordered his men to treat her politely. He knew that Nakia, the crazy alchemist, blood-hungry witch, and taboo destroyer, was a subject of fear for everyone. She didn't hesitate to conduct experiments on humans for her revenge against the Empire, and the Empire was the main target of her chemical weapons. However, many innocent civilians also got involved. But Nakia was now just a desperate girl asking him for help. He put his hand on her shoulder, telling her to calm down and assuring her that Nikki would be fine. He promised to help, so she should explain what had happened. Nakia told him that her sister had been kidnapped, and Nikki should have been home 2 hours ago since the lady next door was taking care of her. She begged him to find her sister because Nikki was just a poor kid, and it was all her fault. He told her not to worry and swore that he would make sure they found Nikki because he believed he knew where Nikki was, leaving her shocked and begging him to save Nikki. He assured her that he would let her know as soon as he found Nikki, so she should stay there, and Bernard would help her. Bernard gracefully told her to inform him if she needed anything, emphasizing that she had made an excellent choice because their young master always kept his promises. Then they began to head out, and Philip reported to him that Pierce was tracking them down and had obtained permission to operate from Mayor Reynaldo. He responded by saying that it was nice. The system showed them that the raid quest was Free City Mira with grades D to B. The objective was to defeat unknown rogues, and the additional objective was to rescue hostages and raid the hideouts in the forest. The description stated that an unknown group of rogues was active in the forest around Mira City, and Mayor Reynaldo had requested a raid on the rogues responsible for kidnapping and interfering with trade. The rewards for completing the quest included a large amount of experience points, coins, recognition from the mayor, and unknown items. He asked Philip if he had given Reynaldo the list of rogues, and Philip replied that Reynaldo had mentioned he would reward them for it later, expressing surprise at the information provided. He had given Reynaldo the list of rogues hidden in the city, using information from his informants and data from the cafe link. Knowing he had already used many resources, he ensured there were no holes in their plan. He then instructed his men to proceed, and Jake excitedly agreed, unaware that two people were hiding in the bushes, spying on them. One of the men communicated something to his comrade. Meanwhile, in the forest, someone walked, catching the attention of Pierce, Ashton County Golden Bear Knights, and Raul's Guard Knights, along with the other Bear Knights men. Pierce believed he had found it based on the traces on the ground, and it was time to initiate their operation. He leaped high and landed on a tree branch, planning to use the new skill he had learned. Activating his detection skill, he began searching the forest. To his shock, he spotted men hiding nearby, armed with bows and arrows. He also observed phantom magic circles and barriers, recalling what Raul had told them, and knew he had to report it. He read Raul's message, indicating they would be there in 5 minutes, prompting him to think back to 5 months ago. He knew that Raul was the youngest son and that Raul was known for his perceived weakness and lack of talent compared to his brothers. Many servants and knights were initially reluctant to travel with Raul, and even when Raul was seeking volunteers, few seemed interested for a long time. However, Raul visited the Knights' training ground and personally spoke to the Knights. During his conversation with Pierce, Raul mentioned that he could help Pierce reach his limits because Pierce had expressed a desire to surpass his current capabilities. He remembered how Raul had wielded Pierce's sword himself and started pointing out the issues. He recalled thinking that while Raul had expressed a desire to surpass his limits, he wondered how a kid like Raul could teach him anything. Nonetheless, he decided to give it a try. When he swung his sword, he was surprised to find that every move felt smoother. He remembered Raul's advice about learning Bear Crush, emphasizing that his strength lay in agility, not power. Raul had suggested that he polish his bow skills, as he had heard Pierce was a talented bowman. Few people knew about his bow skill, yet Raul had noticed it. This made him wonder if Raul was the one who could genuinely help him, so he chose to follow Raul. He was sure it was the best decision he had made, and he believed that those who had declined Raul's offer were probably regretting it now. He didn't understand why Raul had been hiding his power, but with the skill books Raul had provided, he had reached the high expert stage and was able to practice his other skills. It would have been impossible without Raul's guidance. He speculated that today might be the glorious day when Raul would reveal his true strength. However, he noticed someone approaching, so he immediately jumped off the tree branch and gracefully bowed, along with the other knights, respectfully calling out that he had arrived. He looked ahead, and the system indicated that it was an unknown rogue's hideout with an unknown grade and size. Its status showed a 3-circle or higher magic circle interfering with vision, and a 3-circle magic that interrupted anyone who approached. He had to decide whether to destroy the magic circle or find a way to enter to gather more information. He noted that hideouts looked the same even in different cities and that spies from the Cranian Empire were hiding in Mira. While most Connect players received quests from starting cities like Mira, offering rewards for killing monsters or rogues, there were unusual rogues in the mix. These included a slave trader who kidnapped people in the city and mercenaries aiming to make it big. However, the most dangerous of them all were the Cranian Empire's spies, known as the Imperial Hounds, who hunted players and blackmailed them to prevent them from gathering together. They were crucial in the late game, and he couldn't let them be. He called Pierce, who immediately aimed his arrows and released them, hitting the men hiding behind the magic circle. They entered the barrier, and he noticed that there was no one near the entrance. He considered dispelling the magic circle with a scroll he had bought from the shop but hesitated when he saw the mana flow. He wondered if he could do it. He put the scroll back in his jacket, deciding to infuse mana into his weapon. He grabbed his dagger from his inventory and launched it toward the mana flow. It slowly cracked due to his attack, and then he stabbed the magic circle on the ground with his dagger, destroying it. He thought it was nice because, instead of buying scrolls, he could save money. Pierce expected this of their young master and called the men named Jackson and Nil to follow the plan and lure the enemies as they had discussed. He assured them that he would let them know when to enter, to which they both agreed. Pierce descended from the tree branch and walked with them, feeling confident because he had elite knights with him. He told himself that they should hunt them all in his mind. A moment later, they arrived at the huge door. He told everyone that they don't need captives, so they will hunt them all, and they shouldn't forget to use the rapier for the last blow. Jake tells him that he doesn't understand why they should use a stick, but he will follow his orders, even though it doesn't seem to be a task where they need to use weapons. He just orders Pierce to watch there for them and find where the kidnapped people are because they need to save Nakia's younger sister named Nikki, and he should prioritize Nikki, to which Pierce replied that he got it. Then he calls Philip, and Philip nods in agreement. Then he used his psychokinesis while telling them that they should go in and open the huge door in front of them. Then they proceed to walk in while Pierce is looking back. They just continued walking inside the tunnel until he saw the hideout inside and looked at Pierce, which Pierce understood and slowly faded away. The system showed him that Pierce had successfully infiltrated the opponent's base, making him think that they should start hunting now. He looks up and notices that there is a high cave ceiling and wooden fences spread around. Then the rogues' levels there are around 30 to 31, which is not much different from regular thieves, and since he has checked the base, he should give the orders. Then he raised his hand to Jake and Philip, which means he was giving the orders. Then he ordered Jake to go to the left, then Philip to go straight, and he will go to the right. Then he closed his fist, and they all ran toward their designated directions. He speedily ran upstairs, then jumped, making the men at the top wonder who it was, but he appeared above them in a flash before they could react and threw his knives at their heads. Then he landed on the stair handle, immediately grabbed his bow and arrow behind him, aimed it at the man, and released it to kill the man, while in the center, Philip was busy slashing the men, and on the left side, Jake was doing the same thing. But someone on the top saw them and shouted that there were intruders. Then the man ordered the guards to protect the fences and ordered them to kill them. He attacked them with his arrows, realizing that their numbers were increasing and they were starting to block his arrows too. One of the rogues called his companion to aim at him and shoot him down, and he was surprised to see arrows heading toward him. But he just used his psychokinesis and stopped the arrows from flying toward him, making one of the rogues panicky, asking if he bounced off the arrows, and his companion to get some backup from downstairs. The rogues ran toward the stairs to attack him, and one of the men shouted that arrows didn't work on him, so they should jump on him and attack. He put back the bow on his back, guessing that he'd have to use it now. Then he grabbed the daggers on his chest and put them in his hands together. One of the rogues was in front of him and ready to attack him, but he just pushed the man away, and the man was thrown back to his comrade, making everyone surprised. Then he used his psychokinesis to lift the arrows on the ground, then raised them slowly on his side, and then he flew using his power while holding the daggers in his arms and arrows around him. One of the rogues asked if it was magic and shouted that it was impossible. He positioned the arrows around him and aimed all of them at the rogues beneath him. Then he released the arrows together, hitting a lot of rogues. He looks at them struggling while reaching into his inventory, thinking it is still not powerful enough, so he has to exert more force on it to pierce through the armor. Then he jumped off the stair handle and appeared above the man who was trying to run away. He stabbed the man with his rapier while wondering where the others were. Then he looked back and saw Philip and Jake killing the rogues, while the rogues shouted for their companions to run because there were monsters there. The man begged for help when he saw Jake holding the rapier, but Jake just angrily slashed the man with it, making him shocked and sigh, knowing that Jake was rebelling to show that he didn't want to use the rapier. Jake didn't have to make such movements that waste mana. Also, Ashton tells Jake several times not to do that to avoid leaving any traces of swordsmanship, but he doesn't think he has to be too worried. Then he noticed someone sneaking an attack from behind without knowing that Pierce is hiding, and Pierce hits the man with his arrow in time before the man attacks Jake from behind, making him think that they are almost done taking care of the small fries. A few minutes later, Pierce apologizes to him because they searched the whole prison, but they couldn't find Nikki. He puts his hand on Pierce's shoulder while telling him that it is okay and asks him if he explained things to the captive villagers. Pierce replied yes, and they distributed the clothes and food and told them to wait in one place until the battle ended. Jake asks him if he thinks there are other enemies and if they aren't just thieves. He replies that they are thieves but asks Jake back if he thinks it was a little weird, making Jake ask him what he means by weird. He explained that first, Nikki, who was kidnapped, wasn't there, second, there were many of them, but none of them stood out among the rest, and lastly, there was a magic circle at the entrance, making him ask them if anyone saw a wizard there, but they all shake their heads no. He tells them that, in conclusion, the important people and captives are in another place. Jake tells them that it is true, but if they can't find that place, it'll all be useless, and asks Pierce if he thinks so. Pierce replied that he actually checked some suspicious-looking places, but he couldn't find anything with his abilities, and there could be a high-level magic circle or system. He proudly told Pierce that it hadn't even been a month since he became their guild member, but he was good, and soon, no one will be able to fool his eyes, to which Pierce thanked him. Then he smilingly tells them to follow him because he thinks he knows where they are hiding. Then he proceeded to walk, to which they followed him and ordered them to search that hut and report right away if they saw something suspicious. They all replied with an okay. A moment later, he opened the room door while Philip told him that they couldn't find anything suspicious, but he just asked them if it was the fourth hut. He pulled out the rapier from his inventory while telling his people to get ready because the real thing begins now. Then he kicked the table away, lifted his rapier with both hands, and pierced it into the floor hard. The floor shattered into pieces, showing the hidden door. He opened them with his psychokinesis and saw that it was a secret staircase leading to the basement. But then he heard something moving underground, so he told them that something was coming. Suddenly, a huge monster's hand came out of the underground and tried to grab Jake, making Jake panic and ask what it was. Then Jake jumped away in time before it could squeeze him, and the huge monsters came out of the hole, growling at them. The other monsters walked upstairs while Philip told them not to step away because it would be harder to fight them if they scattered. Then the monster launched forward to attack them, but he jumped forward to attack it with his rapier, and pierced it hard, making it scream in pain and push backward. Philip told them that those are the Imperial Demon Cavalry and their vital points are different from humans, so they should aim for their heads. Then Jake attacked the Demon Cavalry from behind while asking what they were doing in that place. On the other hand, he jumped at one of the Demon Cavalry with his rapier, thinking that he should study their traits first, and pierced his rapier into the Demon Cavalry's neck, making it slam on the ground hard and shout in pain. Then the system showed him that it was an incomplete Imperial Demon Cavalry, level 41 with Type 1 Crane and Imperial Demon Cavalry. It was what he'd expected, and he remembered that he had a hard time in the past because of those guys. He also remembered that in his past life, he, Bae DoHyun, attacked the Empire hideout in the starting city on his 6th month of playing the game. It was due to the mayor's request when the top players were about to graduate from the starting city. Tens of top players who had finished changing jobs for the second time formed a punitive force with hundreds of guild alliances and took over the fortress. But when the real Imperial Demon Cavalries who were hiding showed up, most of the players got wiped out immediately, and the rankers, including him, barely got away. No one was able to go near the Empire's hideout for 6 months after that. The Demon Cavalry that showed up that time was complete, and their average level was near 50. Of course, it was hard for players who had barely reached level 50 to handle it. But now, the Demon Cavalry is incomplete, and they have lower levels. Also, his escorts are expert high-class knights who are over level 80. More importantly, he can see the vital points of the Demon Cavalry that are randomly placed. Then he ran to meet the Demon Cavalry running toward him, jumped higher, and stabbed all of its vital points, knowing that all he had to do was stab at the vital points. A moment later, the Imperial Demon Cavalry was wiped out. Jake angrily kicked the dead demon while Philip asked why the Imperial Demon Cavalry was in a place that is akin to the kingdom's front yard and asked him what they should do. He told them that they would go in and they couldn't back out now. Pierce suggested they should at least get some backup, but he disagreed and explained that the captives would be in more danger the longer it takes. So, they have to take care of them before they get in touch with the others outside. Suddenly, Philip and Jake walked forward to him while holding shields and told him to stay behind them because they would handle the enemies, and he should just focus on searching with Pierce. He thought it was a shame, but he knew that it was not the time to be greedy. He would still get a part of the experience points even if he didn't kill them himself, so he saw it as his chance to get carried because he had worked hard until now. Then Philip and Jake walked down first, making him feel great to have such reliable subordinates. He followed behind them, and when Jake opened the door, he told them that they should kill them in frying stool water. They then saw a lot of dead people on the ground, small and huge tubes filled with green water, with parts of monsters and demon cavalry inside them. Pierce told them that they were fearless for conducting chimera research in another country's territory. He mentioned that the demon cavalry they fought must have been made from the citizens they kidnapped, but he didn't expect them to be that crazy. He looked around, thinking that he had seen these kinds of scenes several times in his past life. However, it still creeped him out. In fact, he had considered joining them when he reincarnated because they would seize supremacy over that continent in about 10 years from now. But their emperor was a madman, and becoming his subordinate would be the same as jumping into a fire with a bomb in hand. He knew that there were many baseless rumors about the emperor, but he was sure about one thing: the emperor didn't view humans as humans. All the humans who didn't carry royal blood were divided into classes depending on their worth, and they suffered all their lives doing labor. When they became useless, they were used as experimental subjects or food for the Imperial Demon Cavalry. And of course, even high-class citizens, if they did something that bothered the emperor, were executed. There was a general who had complained about the emperor's tyranny, but while he was talking with the king, the tattoo on his shoulder glowed red, spreading, and then he exploded and died. He remembered it vividly as if he had been there. He had no plans of surviving by sticking beside someone like it, and he couldn't allow experiments on innocent civilians. Suddenly, Philip called him to look down, and when he looked, he was surprised to see magicians casting a spell, while a knight ordered them to activate it because they had to secure the exit route. Pierce used his skills and reported that there were 4 knights, 3 wizards, and 10 Imperial Demon Cavalry. Also, it seemed like the wizards were trying to activate the magic circle in front of the cave. Philip told them that he would take care of the knights, ordered Pierce to take care of the wizards, instructed Jake to deal with the Imperial Demon Cavalry pursuing him, and told him to back them up. Jake poutingly told Philip that he wanted him to clean up the mess from behind. But when Philip glared at Jake in anger, Jake looked at his side and sweat. Then Pierce began by shooting his arrow at one of the wizards, and someone shouted that there were intruders. They all jumped down while he was ordering them to attack. Then he aimed his arrow at one of the wizards, noticing that they were 5th circle wizards, so they had to eliminate them first. However, he knew that ordinary arrows didn't work on the barrier wizards cast, so he decided to use some of his psychokinesis to create a pathway for the arrow's trajectory. After gathering some of his psychokinesis on the arrow, he released it and shot another one, breaking the barrier into pieces and hitting one of the wizards in the head. He was glad that they had stopped them from escaping through the teleport gate, while the knights saw their magic circle shattered. The leader of the knights told his men that their exit route was blocked and ordered them to release the seal and kill them all, to which they replied with a yes. Then the knights released the seal while shouting that it was for their emperor. He was shocked seeing them, then suddenly Philip ran forward, making him surprise. Philip tried to block them and he couldn't believe that Philip, the expert high-class knight who was over level 90, wasn't enough to hold back their opponents. He activated his detection skills and saw that the leader of the knights was named McDowell, level 71, with the job of knight sword expert middle class, belonging to the Cranian Empire, and serving as the Imperial Hound and the Mira branch manager. Also, McDowell's potential was Class B, strength was 75 plus 5, agility was 71 plus 5, stamina was 73 plus 5, intelligence was 55 minus 10, mentality was 68 minus 5, magic was 68 plus 7, sense was 73 plus 5, and his unique traits were blind loyalty, which was grade B, and fear resistance, which was grade C. He noticed that McDowell's stats had increased and wondered if it was due to the red tattoos effect. On the other hand, Jake, who was fighting with the demon cavalry, asked what was going on and if they were all on drugs. Then Jake asked him in the system chat box if he could just kill them with swords because he thought it would be hard with just that little stick. He replied to Jake that Philip and Pierce were doing fine, but it seemed like it was too hard for him. The plan was made because he trusted their capabilities, but he guessed they didn't have any other choice. Jake shyly attacked the demon cavalry in front of him while asking him if he had said it was hard. He explained that he had just said it because he thought Pierce was having a hard time, making Pierce look at Jake in silence. Then Jake angrily attacked the knights, telling them to look at what had happened because of them and that they all should die. He pulled out his rapier from his inventory, thinking that he should do something too. He attacked one of the knights, and he easily attacked its weak point and cut its arm off. Jake, who saw him, thought it was weird and wondered how he figured out the monster's weak points so easily. McDowell shouted that he didn't expect that they'd be overpowered and asked them who they were, thinking that since they used rapiers, they should be from the Randall Viscounty. But somehow, their swordsmanship looked awkward, so based on his instincts, they weren't from the Randall Viscount. Jake asked McDowell why someone who would die soon needed to know, and he told McDowell that if he was done talking, they should start again, calling them dogs of the Empire. McDowell angrily asked Jake how dare he insult the Imperial Hounds, but then McDowell noticed him in the center, making McDowell wonder if he was the leader. Then McDowell smiled, thinking that he had found a way for them to survive. McDowell ordered his people to give their lives for the Emperor, for the honor of the Emperor, to which the knights transformed into demons. One of the knights launched an attack toward them, and he was stunned, knowing that it was the Black Sacrifice. Jake blocked the knight's attack with his shield, but his shield was squeezed, and Jake exclaimed that it was so strong. He knew that it was a skill that sacrificed oneself by burning life energy and mana to obtain incredible strength for a very short time. He thought they must be planning something, judging by the fact that they were using that skill. The system then showed Jake telling him to be careful. He saw McDowell running toward them and noticed that McDowell was using the Empire KE-type power armor. It was ranked E, with an output of 0.8 CP, an uptime of 2 hours, an operation mode of mana stone consumption, and a defense skill of 3 circles. Philip ran forward to meet McDowell in the center while telling him that they were after him. Philip slashed McDowell, but he noticed that the attack was cancelled out by the force field. Then McDowell ran straight towards him, making Philip call out to him in panic. McDowell launched his fist at him while telling him that it was over. McDowell attacked him with strong power that broke the ground into pieces, but then McDowell shouted, asking what it was and if he was a power armor user while he blocked his attack. McDowell wondered if it was a power armor with shifting parts and thought that judging by its appearance, it should be F-class, but his instinct told him that it would be dangerous if the shifting ended. Then McDowell launched his other fist to attack him while telling him to die, but he just looked at the huge hand of McDowell, wondering what had happened. He knew that he was going to dodge the attack by using the C-rank skill Flash, but a message popped up, and he couldn't move. The system showed him that he had encountered a hostile power armor, so Rignator, who was asleep, had woken up. Then a light wrapped around his hand, and an armor appeared on his arm. The system showed him that it had a unique trait of an unknown grade, X, and attainments in sword expertise and middle-class psychokinesis. Also, he had fulfilled the minimum qualification which activated Rignator, but he didn't have enough mana for complete activation. So, the system searched for other energy and found intermediate-grade psychokinesis, successfully fixing the shape using his psychokinesis. Rignator had partially activated, leaving him amazed as he looked at his power armor. He knew that it was a barrier that blocked all physical attacks weaker than a mana blade and a defense skill that cancelled out at least 3 circle magic. A mysterious core increased the mana and physical abilities of the user. Even if they had a higher level and experience, they couldn't win against someone with power armor. That's how great the effects of the power armor were. However, power armor was for NPCs, so if they weren't a connected villager, it couldn't be worn. For players, power armor became a dream piece of equipment they could never have, and for NPCs, it was the only way they could fight against the player's outbursts. And he was wearing that power armor. McDowell continuously attacked him, angrily asking what was happening and why his attacks weren't working. He jumped away from McDowell to avoid his attacks and slowly dispelled his power armor while looking at the exhausted McDowell. He used his psychokinesis to grab his rapier nearby, pulled out his sword, and activated his shooting star skill, making McDowell swear in fear. Then he jumped forward and attacked McDowell with his shooting stars, causing McDowell to curse because he even broke his barrier. McDowell wondered if it was the end. McDowell coughed out blood, and the crystal in his chest slowly cracked into pieces, but McDowell thought that even if it was his end, he wouldn't die alone. Then McDowell released his power while shouting honor to the Empire, and McDowell shouted in pain as the crystal slowly crawled inside his body and changed him. He noticed that McDowell's body was fusing with the power armor, and he guessed it was almost over. Then the system showed him that Rignator had detected a forbidden piece of power, making him wonder what it meant. Then the system showed him that it was releasing part of the seal due to an oath, and a bright light came out of his body, surprising him. The bright light surrounded him, and the power armor slowly wrapped around him until it fully consumed him. Then the system showed him that Rignator would show his true self temporarily. A foot with shining armor emerged, and he came out of the bright light in complete armor. Then, he faced McDowell, who had also undergone a complete transformation. McDowell growled at him and leaped forward to attack, but he merely expressed his disgust, which further infuriated McDowell. While McDowell launching his fist towards him, he raised one arm to block McDowell's attack. This action caused both of their people to cease their fighting and look at them. When McDowell's attack connected, it resulted in a massive explosion, throwing McDowell's people aside. Jake and Philip struggled to shield themselves, but he remained firmly in his position, unflinching, glaring at McDowell. Suddenly, McDowell's power armor began to slowly crack into pieces, surprising him. He raised his hand and used psychokinesis to lift McDowell. He then squeezed McDowell, causing McDowell to cry out in pain. He then fully squeezes McDowell, telling him to piss off, and McDowell's power armor gradually disintegrated into pieces, causing him to scream in agony before falling lifeless to the ground, and the Rignator effect slowly fades. He couldn't believe he had done it and knew he had barely met the time limit. Suddenly, he coughed up blood, causing Philip and Jake to panic as they rushed to his side, asking if he was okay. He raised his hand to reassure them that he was fine, all the while contemplating that he had never experienced such a sensation before. It was unlike anything he had felt as a player. It was as if he had glimpsed eternal power. He understood that he had borrowed the item's power this time, but he swore that one day he would attain such strength on his own. A moment later, the magic circle shattered into pieces, revealing a pocket teleportation device and a mana stone. He decided to figure out how to use them later. Then, Pierce informed him that they had located Nikki and the other hostages, but unfortunately, some of them were deceased. He told Pierce that there was nothing more they could do and instructed him to collect their belongings to return to their families. Pierce agreed and reported that Nikki was not in good condition right now, so he urged Pierce to hurry, and they should leave. Several minutes later, as they walked towards the cave exit, Jake asked him if they were truly leaving valuable items behind. In response, he asked Jake if he wanted to take them, to which Jake replied affirmatively, emphasizing their usefulness and incalculable value. He acknowledged Jake's point regarding McDowell's power armor and its potential use as evidence against the Empire's spies. He also recognized that dealing with the Imperial Hounds was no easy task, as they posed a significant threat to small nobles. Many users had given up because of them, but he believed it was wiser to focus on their growth and expanding his influence rather than provoking the Imperial Hounds at this time. He reassured Jake that it was all part of the plan, so he should forget about it, and also he was the one who finished it. Jake replied saying that's because he instructed them to stay away. He promised Jake a bonus for his hard work that day, instructing him to go back and rest. Jake excitedly asked if he was truly giving him a bonus and a vacation, and jokingly told him that he couldn't take it back. Jake walked away happily, leaving him to wonder whether Jake was foolish or clever. He then ordered Pierce to provide a report, and Pierce informed him that they had successfully lured their adversaries as planned, with no setbacks to report. He smiled as he looked at Pierce, thinking that he should observe their reactions, although he knew it would be quite evident. Still, he was curious about the expressions they would make after falling for that trick. Meanwhile, somewhere in the forest, someone inquired about how far they had traveled, and Ramon shouted at their guide, asking if they were heading in the right direction. Ramon believed they had tracked Raul to that forest, but they couldn't find any traces of him. They had also needed time to recover mentally from the shrine and had lost money and swords due to Raul. Ramon thought they had lost to Raul because they couldn't use mana skills in the city, despite having 12 knights and their guard leader, Jeremy, equipped with power armor. Ramon looked up, thinking it was their chance now that Raul was outside the city. The man in the robe pointed in a direction and informed Ramon that it was right there. They proceeded forward and stopped in front of a cave. Kale expressed concern, remarking that it looked kind of dangerous, but he guessed they had to go inside to find out. Ramon insisted that they should go in because they had come outside the city to find Raul. A moment later, they all laughed joyfully upon seeing a pile of gold on the ground. Ramon happily informed his brothers that they couldn't find Raul, but this discovery was pretty nice. Jerry added that magic items, artifacts, and even the bodies of wanted individuals were present, with the power armor being the most significant find. Meanwhile, in the city, the knights guarding it observed people on horseback approaching and were surprised to see their young master. One of the knights thanked him for the trouble and reported that they had raided a hideout in the East Forest and successfully rescued the hostages. He praised their efforts and inquired about the whereabouts of the others. They responded that they had arrived there after completing their mission. These were his trainee knights and first guild members. 6 of them had progressed to experts through training, while the rest were ready to become experts. Additionally, all of them could use mana and had learned Ashton County's sword skills. He instructed them to retrieve supplies from the north and west hideouts, thinking that with over 100 members now, normal rogues wouldn't be able to stand against them. He then ordered everyone that they should go now, to which they agreed. Later, they reached their destination, and the knight guarding the area was astounded, asking if they were from Ashton County and why there were so many of them, observing them holding and carrying hostages. He inquired of the knight on the ground if he was the captain, and the knight confirmed it. The captain explained that they had guided the civilians there as per his request, earning praise from him. The worried civilians asked if Raul was the one who had rescued the hostages and hoped to finally reunite with their children. At the front, Nakia was relieved to see Nikki in Raul's arms, and Raul kindly assured her that Nikki was right there, causing Nakia to express her gratitude repeatedly. He informed Nakia that Nikki was currently in poor condition and that they would need to provide her with treatment at the mansion. He then called Bernard, who informed him that a priest was already at the mansion. He glanced at Nakia, contemplating how he had saved the lives of many who were destined to die and had altered the future of an alchemist consumed by vengeance. He wondered if Nakia's path to becoming a grand alchemist might be different now, and the items and potions she had created might not come to exist in this world. However, he recognized that he still needed Nakia for the county's future and noticed that everything had started to change when he returned to the past. He didn't mind if history was altered. He vowed not to hesitate to shape someone's future as he was no longer a kind-hearted person. Even today, he believed he could have saved many more lives if he had acted more swiftly. Instead, he had focused on completing quests and gaining Nakia's interest. While he knew he had completed the quest overnight and ensured the safety of the city, he couldn't shake his unease. Then, he noticed an elderly woman holding gloves, crying in pain, lamenting that her son had not returned. He recognized that these were lower-class individuals who couldn't afford commissions and that some people hadn't even been given a chance. Upon reflection, he realized that his actions had been solely driven by quests and leveling up. He had never engaged in conversations with people unrelated to his quests. He recalled his initial intention to live in the present when he was reincarnated, but he had continued to treat life like a game. He acknowledged that living a life in accordance with the system wasn't necessarily wrong, but he began to question whether simply following the system-determined quests was truly the right path. He realized that he had been making plans based on the perspective of the player Bae DoHyun, but wondered if this approach limited his horizons and options. He felt that if he didn't discover something unique that only Raul, as a nobleman of Connect, could do, something beyond what a player could achieve, he might repeat the failures of his past. He turned to Philip and asked if he could see the disheartened people standing there and provide him with their personal information and circumstances. Philip inquired if he meant all of them, to which Raul replied in the affirmative. He then instructed Philip to offer consolation money to those who had lost their families or had their families kidnapped, as well as to help them find jobs. Raul felt sorry for adding more work to Philip's plate when Philip had originally come to fight. Philip commented that it was unexpected, remarking that Raul usually only got involved when it benefited him. However, he reassured Raul that the others wouldn't refuse the request, so there was no need to worry. Philip then shifted his gaze toward Jake, implying that there might be someone who would decline. This remark annoyed Jake, who asked Philip why he was looking at him when he didn't mind doing good deeds either. Jake then asked Raul if he was going to give him some time off. After providing financial support to the grieving individuals, they walked away, expressing their gratitude and wishing Raul a long life. Raul patted his horse, considering that the support from Mira's citizens would be valuable when dealing with other guilds. While it had all been calculated, it felt like killing two birds with one stone since the citizens appreciated it. He also thought it would be a good idea to stay in the area a bit longer to level up and gain practical experience. They conversed with the civilians, unaware of a man behind them who was observing Raul with a smile. The following day, in the main castle in Mira, Reynaldo expressed his gratitude, acknowledging that Raul had alleviated many of his concerns. Raul humbly replied that even without him, he would have resolved the situation. But Reynaldo disagreed, explaining that he couldn't even sleep after hearing the news of Mira being targeted by the Empire's evil forces. Reynaldo believed that without Raul's report, they would have been in significant trouble. Raul agreed that he had been surprised by the situation and added that it was unexpected that the Empire's evil forces had infiltrated Mira, which was clearly within the territory of the Kingdom of Ruben. He went on to mention that, judging by their hideout, it appeared they had been working secretly for quite some time, training demonic soldiers. Reynaldo confessed that there had been missing cases in the past, but they couldn't take action due to the treaty. According to the treaty, Mira wasn't allowed to maintain an army and could only operate guards, and even those guards couldn't fully utilize their capabilities outside the city. Reynaldo also tells him that someone from Randall Viscounty came as he said, and they claimed to have destroyed the spies' hideout while vigorously demanding compensation. If it weren't for his request, they would have simply expelled them. He tells Reynaldo that he expected this, but as he has mentioned before, it matters. However, Reynaldo interrupts him by suggesting that they should make it look like Randall Viscounty was responsible and ask if he doesn't think it would be beneficial. Not only would he gain a great reputation, but he might also receive rewards from the royal court. He thanked Reynaldo for his concern but asked him to proceed as he had instructed. Reynaldo tells him that he is being overly cautious and not having fun for his age but assures him that he will handle the matter well. He knows that taking care of the Empire's hideout will be the Randall bastards' contribution, and it will be their responsibility to attract the Empire's attention as well. Then Reynaldo tells him that he doesn't know what he should give him as a reward, and he doesn't think money will be enough. He asks him what he wants because he is willing to grant him anything, making Reynaldo think that he's finally hearing something he wants to hear. He tells Reynaldo that he'd like to ask him for a favor. Then he mentions that he heard about Reynaldo's mansion having a study with a collection of valuable books. He asks if it would be alright for him to take a look at those books. Reynaldo tells him that it's no trouble and he should feel free to explore. He even offers to let him take one of the books with him. However, it seems like it won't be enough, so he tells him he'll show him the secret treasury and allow him to choose one item as a gift. He thanks Reynaldo for his generosity and notes that, as expected, he is very cool. Reynaldo excitedly mentions that he gives generously when necessary, but some people call him stingy, leaving him wondering why Reynaldo is showing off when he has to give him a reward anyway. A moment later, he arrives at Reynaldo's library, and the butler tells him that he will leave him be, encouraging him to explore at his leisure. He wonders if this is the place and decides to pick one of the books, thinking that they may appear to be miscellaneous books but are actually a marvelous treasury of skill books. He opens one of the books, and the system asks him if he would like to acquire the B-rank skill book, Thunder Pierce. As he looks around, he can't believe that all the books in the library are skill books, and he feels satisfied just by looking at them. He realizes that there's no guarantee he can come here again, so he carefully searches for the book he wants. Then he notices a subtle light coming from a book on the top shelf, so he knows he must take a look at it. The system shows him that it's a study of ancient rituals, spells, and instructional methods for mental cultivation. He grabs it from the center, noting its lengthy title, and when he opens it, the system reveals that it's the Quercus Meditation Art, Grade S. This meditation art is exclusively for psychic ability users, providing a 24-hour automatic meditation effect and enabling mental training. The description explains that it was used by ancient psychics to cultivate spiritual power, and allows purification of the soul through communion with nature and mental imagery space. There is also a popular belief that meditating near an oak tree increases efficiency. He was excited that he had found a meditation method exclusively for S-level psychics, and was happy that he could finally get his hands on it now. He remembered that in his previous life, even with only a B-rank meditation art, he, Bae DoHyun, had managed to reach the top rank in the early stages. However, later on, he was pushed out of the ranked position due to insufficient spiritual power capacity. By the time he tried to find a better meditation art, the path to obtaining skill books had already been blocked by large guilds and other rankers. Originally, skill books related to superpowers had the worst drop rates, and related information was also very limited. But after some time, information about the Quercus meditation art was revealed. According to a flame magician ranker in Japan, Sakata Shichisa, the mayors of the starting cities were hiding one S-rank skill each. Among them, the superpowered skill he had acquired was in Mira's library. He also remembered that he had obtained an S-rank skill book in the starting city, Ignit, in his past life. It was a magician-only skill, so it was useless to him. However, this time was different, and the effects of the meditation method stacked up, so he wouldn't run out of spiritual power this time. Additionally, psychic abilities might not seem significant in the beginning, but as the level increased, the power and range of use greatly expanded. With sufficient spiritual power support, it would be much easier to increase his proficiency. If he could return to the level he had reached in his previous life before a full-scale war with the Empire began, he would be in an excellent position. He excitedly looked forward to that day. Later, in the underground of Reynaldo's castle, he looked at the moderate mana ring he had chosen from Reynaldo's treasury and thought that there were much better items in his hometown. He asked himself if he should undertake some personal reorganization that he had been putting off until now. He knew that he had completed all 70 quests he had gathered in one night and obtained skill books below C rank, as well as rare grade items. Additionally, he had amassed 50,000 player-only coins. He opened his status window and saw that he was currently at level 55 with strength of 66, agility of 67, stamina of 65, intelligence of 58, willpower of 71, mana of 70, spiritual power of 72, and senses of 71. His unique traits were Skill Collector Grade X, Developers Analyzing I Grade X, Psychokinetic Meister Grade S+, Royal Lineage Grade A, and an Unknown Trait Grade X. He noticed that all of his body's stats had surpassed 65 in just 1 month, and even his mana and spiritual power had exceeded 70, indicating that he was now quite skilled. He knew that superhumans, known as sword masters or high-tier psychokinetics, typically had stats around 90. In his previous life, he had even reached 90 in willpower and senses. So, he made a vow that in his current life, he would raise all his stats to 90, and if the opportunity arose, he would strive to become the first player to achieve 100 in stats. It might sound like a dream, but he believed he had many opportunities in his current life. For instance, his Rignator Power Armor was currently in Grade B. Its stats were bound to him, partially open and sealed, with an output of 1.5 core power, an operating time of 5 minutes, and a self-charging operating mode. Its defense techniques included 6 circles, a mid-tier mana blade attribute force field, and a 50% reduction in attribute effects. According to its description, it was a replica of mythical power armor that had traversed time and space. Most of its functions were sealed, and some special functions had transformed. However, the seal would be undone once specific requirements were met. It had 2 special functions, Condemnation, which had an effect amplified by 200% against the target of the oath, and Covert Satiation, which allowed it to absorb lower-grade power armor and imitate their functions. One of the 2 items that had followed him when he reincarnated was his skill dex, which had been unlocked through quests. He could also awaken his Rignator Power Armor this time. Regarding the skill dex, he had received a quest to unlock the next seal. To do so, he needed to complete 50 quests related to the proficiency of random slot skills. However, in relation to the Rignator, he had no clue how to proceed. It was likely because the current output was challenging to handle. Then he realized that he had unlocked a new unique trait, Developers Analyzing I Grade X. Its effect allowed him to borrow the developer's vision and steal information related to the system. It also facilitated the analysis of the flow of special energies. He thought that this must be why he had been able to see NPC information and mana flow all that time. It had been just his assumption, but he believed he must have gained it when he subdued the Imperial Hound's demonic energy. He knew that he would find out more once he saw the quest that appeared along with the trait unlocking. Normally, it should have appeared around the time of leaving the starting city, but it seemed like an error due to attacking the Imperial Hound hideout too early. He also knew that if he followed the same path he did in his previous life, he would have to keep crossing paths with the Empire to obtain the black magic stone fragments. He'd have to navigate the scenario amidst their extreme interference. However, for now, he was a player and a citizen of Connect, so whatever scenario he chose and whichever quest he cleared was up to him. He swore that he would no longer be a puppet following the developers' wishes. If the ending they decided on differed from what he wanted, he would act as he saw fit, even if it meant disrupting the scenario and the quest itself. The next day, he was in the library when someone knocked and asked if he was inside. Then Bernard reported to him that Nikki had regained consciousness, and Nakia would like to meet him. He told Bernard that they should meet Nakia and go see her. A moment later, he asked Nakia about her little sister's condition, and the maid informed her that their young master was there. Nakia kneeled on the ground in tears, thanking him and expressing her gratitude for his kindness. He reassured her not to worry about it and told her that, for now, she needed to be strong for her sister. He looked up at Nikki, wondering if he should check on her condition as well. Nikki thanked him for saving her, then looked to the side, making Nakia apologize because Nikki was very shy. He reassured Nakia that it was fine because Nikki was still young. He looked at Nikki with concern, noticing that she was still unwell, and wondered if he should examine her more closely. He approached Nikki and saw intense waves in her eyes, which surprised him. He couldn't help but wonder what was going on and if the others had not noticed it while Nikki and Nakia were looking at him with confusion. He thought that his eyes might be playing tricks on him, but he would have to examine them again using the developer's analysis. He was shocked to see something unusual in Nikki's eyes, and he couldn't believe what he was witnessing. He thought Nikki was just a kid, but the system showed him that Nikki was level 5 with an unknown class. Her affiliation was Free City Mira, her talent was unknown, and her potential talent was grade SS. Her strength was 5, agility 3, stamina 3, intelligence 60-30, willpower 65-25, mana 62-61, senses 52-45. Her 3 unique traits were unknown, and he couldn't believe that Nikki's potential talent was SS. Also, he noticed that Nikki's illness was bringing her stats down. But he wondered what if he could cure her illness and bring out her true stats, making him say that he couldn't even imagine how powerful she'd be. Nakia worriedly asked him what was wrong, making him snap back to reality, and reply that it was nothing. However, he knew that he'd have to look more into it for Nikki. A few days later, he was in the library and looking at the documents while thinking that he had all the papers he needed, and he was almost done with Mira. Also, everything was going well because they found more rogues and slave traders and rescued 50 more people. So now, Mira was the safest place, and the guildhouse construction was done, with some members living there now. Many civilians they rescued were willing to work for them, and there were many talented workers, so he was confident in every aspect. The only thing left was Nakia. Then Bernard informed him that he was opening the door, and Nakia entered shyly. After they were seated, he asked her how Nikki was doing, and she replied that Nikki was doing much better thanks to the priests, who were working hard, and thanked him again. He told her that it was nice, but he knew that Nakia was just saying it. Nikki's condition had not improved, and it was something they couldn't heal with divine power in the first place. Then he explained to her that he asked to see her because he wanted to talk to her. She replied that she understood and asked him if it was true that he was leaving today because she hadn't been able to properly thank him yet. He replied yes, and told her that he had stayed longer than he was supposed to, so he was on a tight schedule now. She told him to ask her anything and asked him how she may help him, while thinking that there must be a reason why he helped her and Nikki so much. Also, Nakia really wants to be of help, but every noble she has met so far has been very greedy, and they are people who are only nice on the surface. So she is scared Raul might be the same, and she doesn't want to disappoint Raul. Then he told her that it was not what she was thinking and she should read that first while giving her the documents. She accepted it in confusion and was shocked to see what was written on them. She accidentally let go of them while looking at the pardon letter, saying that he forgave all sins committed by Nakia in the past and released all charges on Nakia. She shockingly asked him if it was real and how did he do it. He replied that luckily, it was something that could easily be settled with money. He knew that the paper he just gave Nakia pardoned her of her sins, and he had to use quite a lot of money to get permission from the Alliance, but it was nothing compared to Nakia's worth. She was teary while thinking that she had to suffer through 5 years of pain because of the mana restriction, and it was a problem she thought she could never escape. But Raul solved it so easily, making her think that she was stupid to have compared Raul with other nobles and she was so arrogant. He asked her if she could tell him how she got her mana restricted, if it was okay with her, and she replied that when she was a kid, she left her hometown. Her alchemy teacher saw her talent as an alchemist and helped her get into the Alchemist Association. She made a name for herself as a young, talented alchemist and even mastered 3-circle magic at the age of 13. But then, misfortune struck all of a sudden, and there was a disease outbreak in her hometown, which took the lives of her family. There was only Nikki left when she got there, and she tried to bring Nikki to the association and live with her, but misfortune didn't stop. When Nikki turned 6, she got an incurable disease, and it was probably because of her. There were many hazardous substances around her, and she focused on finding a cure for 2 years. She made it to the 5th circle at the age of 18 during the process, but it meant nothing to her. When Nikki's death was approaching, she couldn't think of any solutions. So she broke the taboo by using alchemy on a person and kept Nikki alive by using materials she stole from the association. But Nikki couldn't even stay awake without medicine. Then she was caught breaking the taboo and got kicked out of the association with constraints. Then they stayed there after wandering around for a while, and the city was safe, and God's blessing there helped with Nikki's illness. But minor restrictions and a sick sister didn't look good to the people there. He told her that she had been through a lot and gave her the potion while telling her to drink it, explaining that it would free her. She was shocked. She slowly took the potion from him and drank it straight away. Then a powerful power came out of her body. She closed her eyes, thinking that it had been 5 years, but she felt it still relaxing, and she missed it so much. He was smilingly looking at her, showing that Nakia's level was 68 with Intermediate Alchemist 5th Circle class. Her affiliation is Free City Mira, her potential talent grade is S, her strength is 43, her agility is 48, her stamina is 55, her intelligence is 80, her willpower is 77, her mana is 78, and her senses are 81. Also, her unique traits are Master of Alchemy grade S, Precise Tuner grade A, Genius Absurdity grade A-, and an unknown trait. She opened her eyes and understood what Raul really wanted from her. Then she knelt in front of him while telling him that she, Nakia, would be loyal to him. She was eager to see him save many others, just like how he saved her and Nikki. He reached out to her and patted her head while telling her that he accepted her loyalty, and that he wouldn't forget what she said. Then he gave her another document and told her that he would give it to her as well, making her ask him what it was. He replied that